It continues to be a very busy weekend and very busy offseason for the Philadelphia Eagles. On the same week that the Birds lost one legend to retirement in Jason Kelce, the Eagles are losing yet another franchise icon to retirement in Fletcher Cox, who just made the announcement on this Sunday. Coming up here on today's Philadelphia Eagles Now, I'm Chase Sr. Thanks for being here with us. A tribute to one of the best players in the history of this organization, what this means for Philadelphia this offseason with free agency getting underway on Monday, and who must step up now that Cox is gone. And it's pretty wild, right? In a league that stands for not for long, it's incredibly rare for one organization to have four players who are a part of the core of this organization or any organization for a decade plus. But the Eagles have had that, and what a rare run it is that every fan should be appreciative of and recognize. Jason Kelce, retired. Fletcher Cox, now retired. Brandon Graham, re-signing with Philadelphia on a one-year contract to come back for a 15th and final season, and Lane Johnson is entering his 12th season. And we're not talking about scrubs here. We're talking about some of the best players to ever suit up for the Philadelphia Eagles, and all of them were together as members of this team for a decade plus. Jason Kelce, best center of all time in the history of the Eagles. Fletcher Cox, maybe the best defensive tackle in the history of this organization. Brandon Graham leads the organization in games played and is top 5 all-time in sacks. And then Lane Johnson is one of the best offensive tackles in the game and one of the best right tackles that this organization has ever had. So for Philadelphia and for Eagles fans, times are changing. There's a new guard entering the fold, and it's a new-look Eagles team with other young players who are going to have to step up and be leaders of this team. Fletcher Cox goes down as one of the best to ever do it in Midnight Green. Super Bowl 52 champion, a first-team All-Pro in 2018, a 3-time second-team All-Pro. So 4 All-Pro honors to his name. 6-time Pro Bowler and a member of the 2010s All-Decade team. He was a 6-time team captain and a first-round pick all the way back in 2012 at a Mississippi State. It's incredible. He's number 3 in franchise history in games played, behind Brandon Graham and Jason Kelce. He's number 5 all-time in sacks, and he has the most sacks among all defensive tackles in the history of the organization. A player who was consistently available, always durable, always a leader, and a dominant force along the interior of this Philadelphia Eagles defensive line. A player who other teams had to game plan for week in and week out. And when you think about some of the best defensive tackles of this generation, and by the way, Fletcher Cox goes out still playing excellent football. You think about Aaron Donald, you think about Chris Jones, you think about Fletcher Cox. Those are elite players, and Fletcher Cox was in that category. Now, was he maybe a 1B to the 1A that was Aaron Donald and Chris Jones? Yeah, that's fair. But the point here being, an all-time great player who's going to be an Eagles Hall of Famer, you have to wonder if anybody's going to wear 62 again or number 91 again. And as far as Fletcher Cox's case to be a Pro Football Hall of Famer, he's not going to be a first ballot. Maybe at some point he gets in. But when you're a Super Bowl champion and a 4-time All-Pro, a 6-time Pro Bowler, and a member of the 2010s All-Decade team, being a member of the 2010s All-Decade team proves my point, that he was one of the best at his position for a very, very long time. And that's how you have to factor in greatness sometimes. How long were you great? Fletcher Cox, really, from the time he was drafted by Andy Reid up until when he retired under Nick Sirianni, was a great player every single year. And his letter to Eagles fans, pretty special. He said, April 26, 2012 was a special day that changed my life forever. When Andy Reid called me to say I would be drafted by Philadelphia, I fulfilled a lifelong dream by making it to the NFL, but what I didn't know at the time was how much of an honor and privilege it would be to represent the city of Philadelphia and the Eagles organization for the next 12 years. I want to thank Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, Doug Peterson, Nick Sirianni, Don Smolensky, and the entire support staff for the Philadelphia Eagles. He further said, after thanking his mom, BG, Kelce Lane, you guys will always have a special place in my heart. Trent Cole, I'm so thankful for you taking me under your wing in my first year. I can only hope I was able to have the same kind of impact on others that you had on me. DB, you and I have grown together over the years and share a similar story. You don't know what you mean to me. He's talking about Derek Barnett. And then Vinny, that's Vinny Curry. We went from not knowing each other to being in the same group at the Combine and then being drafted by the same team. We are roommates. And then he said to Eagles fans everywhere, there is not a fan base in all of sports that is as passionate as you. You are intense and demanding, but it's because of how much you care. After spending my career here, I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. I'll never forget the feeling of running out the tunnel at Lincoln Financial Field or the roar of the crowd after making one big play. One of the proudest moments of my life was holding up that Lombardi trophy at the Rocky Steps while looking out into the sea of fans. It was breathtaking to realize what we were able to accomplish and how much it meant to so many. And he talked about how he grew up in Yazoo City, became a world champion, and a fantastic player. And any athlete that gets drafted by Philadelphia, any athlete that signs with the Eagles in free agency, what the Eagles should do is bring them into the facility, and they should read that letter off to them, and they should play the Jason Kelce retirement speech, as well as the interview/speech that Zach Ertz had when he was traded away to the Arizona Cardinals a couple of years ago. These are athletes who get it. These are athletes who understand the city. These are athletes who understand the fans and the fan base. We are demanding. We are intense. We will come after you if you don't give effort and if you don't play well. And we will hold you accountable. Just like we want to be held accountable at our jobs. I can't hop on the mic, hop in front of the camera here, and have shitty show after shitty show. It's unacceptable. And I'd want everybody to tell me that. And some athletes don't understand the intensity from this fan base. But it is because we care as Eagles fans. And if you go out there and you just give full effort, we're going to root you on. We're going to cheer for you. We're going to get you a beer. And it's going to be midnight green till we're dead and cold. That's all we ask. Give a shit like we give a shit. Care like we care. And Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelce, Zach Ertz, they understand it. And all three of those players have a pretty interesting story, right? All of them become franchise icons, and Brandon Graham's going to say the same thing when he retires. And there were moments in which things were tense for those players. There were moments when people were over Zach Ertz, couldn't break tackles, dropped some passes, was a bad blocker, lacked effort. There were times when people wanted Jason Kelce out of Philadelphia. There were times when people wanted to move on from Fletcher Cox. How did they respond to that, though? They responded to that with effort, with caring, and with elite level play. And now they go down as some of the best Eagles to ever do it. And again, Brandon Graham, Lane Johnson, it'll be the same for them. Now, I love this note from Zach Berman, who's now with All Philly, formerly Athletic and Philadelphia Inquirer. He said, Cox told his teammates after the season that he was retiring. The announcement was official today, but this was an expected move. How about this? The last time the Eagles went into a season without Cox on the defensive line, Cullen Jenkins and Mike Patterson were the starters. It'll now be Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and Milton Williams' turn to take over the interior of the line. So that brings me to this. What does this mean for the Philadelphia Eagles moving forward? Exactly that. The young guys are going to have to step up. It's a new era. And Jalen Carter, who finished second in Defensive Rookie of the Year voting behind Will Anderson of the Houston Texans, has all of the potential in the world to have a career like Fletcher Cox, maybe even better. He's that gifted. You don't see 300-plus pound dudes move quickly like that, have the explosiveness like that, just be able to bully offensive linemen, throw them out the club, and pancake dudes. But Fletcher Cox was able to stay in the league for 12 years because he had his head on straight. Because he devoted his life to his craft. Because he was always in the lab working. Same thing for Jason Kelce. And same thing for these other great players who we're talking about. In order to be great, it is a relentless pursuit of greatness. So you can have all of the ability. Jalen Carter, you have to have your head on straight. Fletcher Cox, never got in any trouble. The most controversial thing he did, according to Eagles fans, was hunt. And there's nothing wrong with that. How do you get your meat? Much more gruesome than a natural hunt. Jordan Davis, you got to stay in shape. You're 6'6", 340. You ran a sub-5 40-yard dash at the NFL Scouting Combine. You've had moments of greatness, but you're not in good enough shape. That comes down to caring. Taking care of your body. That's what it requires to be a great player in this league for a long time. So the ability is there for these young players. And I really like Milton Williams. I really do. He's shown me a lot of potential all throughout his playing career. These players have it. But it's up to them to take this opportunity by the neck and control it. Nolan Smith, another thing, has to get a little bit bigger. But I watched every single one of his snaps against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers yesterday, and I saw some people on social media saying, no instincts. Guy was making plays flying around as a young, inexperienced player. As for free agency, I'd highly doubt that the Eagles obviously spend big at defensive tackle. Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelce retiring frees up some money for sure. Wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles go like lower end defensive tackle for depth, or in the draft they address that position, but they have to find out if Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis are it. If Milton Williams can be a member of this organization too, because you need 4 defensive tackles on a roster on a steady rotation. So Fletcher Cox retires. Man, what a run for him and Jason Kelce. When you buy Eagles jerseys, I always like to get legends because they're timeless. That's why I have a Brian Dawkins, Jason Kelce, Donovan McNabb, Brian Westbrook. Legends. Kelce, Cox, a part of that. A lot of great content over the weekend. Make sure you check it out. We'll be live tomorrow morning, Monday morning, right here on Eagles Now for the start of NFL free agency. It's been a busy offseason for the Birds. New look team. In a way, it's exciting, but in a way, it's a little bit sad. Seeing Jason Kelce, Fletcher Cox retire, and then you know that the end is near for Brandon Graham and Lane Johnson. Hope all of you out there enjoy the rest of your Sundays. We'll catch you later here on Eagles Now. As always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.